All right. Hello. Good evening. My name is Kristen. This is my co-host and partner, Swill, the coolest podcast guy around.
I'm all right.
Yeah. He's mediocre at best, but
Yeah, me.
yeah, we'll keep him around for a while. That'll be fine. So we have a pretty nifty show for you guys today. We are covering the super duper popular JonBenét case, which has been unfortunately popular for 30 years now, and I desperately hope that they solve this case. But very hot right now, so we're going to give you some detail on that and what went down, my opinions, Will's perspective from us as parents and whatnot. So that is where we are starting.
Yep.
I'll introduce myself. I am your favorite local barber cosmetologist, double licensed in the business a very long time. If you need tape up, touch ups, hit me up. I've been studying the occult for years and years, all things creepy and weird and conspiracy. And so, yeah, this is our After Dark panel. And shout out to Shaq, as always.
Yeah.
Our homie, the inspiration and all that we do.
Did you know that I'm a diehard Laker fan?
No, I did not.
Yeah, I've been a Laker fan since like '96.
Well, I hope that Shaq started that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You couldn't beat it.
See, I had to be a Bulls fan. I mean, it was just, I lived in the city, so it was like, it would be just weird if I wasn't.
Yeah.
Especially not a Bears fan. I don't know. Did they lose again?
I think they're playing later.
No, they played today against the 49ers. Yeah, they're on quite the streak, so. Yeah, just good old Chicago sports.
Yeehaw.
Yeah. 90, well, how long do we have to wait? 100 years. We're going to have to wait 100 years for the Bears to win.
They'll probably find JonBenét Ramsey by then.
Oh, I hope that they do. Mr. John Ramsey, I have a lot of faith in him. I'm giving away my perspective on who the killer is, I think, now.
Okay.
By stating that I hope that Mr. John Ramsey finds.
Yeah, man. For sure.
Yeah, so let's start off now in recent news. I want to start out with speaking of, we were talking about Shaq and JonBenét. Speaking of America's sweetheart, let's touch on the United Healthcare killer.
Oh, bro! Oh my God!
This shit is wild.
Yeah, and it's like it keeps getting wilder by the day.
Yeah,
it just seems like it seems like they know who they're looking for, but they will not tell us.
I'm not sure that they know who they're looking for.
They released another picture of him,
right?
And he was in a taxi, a picture of a video in a taxi, and then they said that he fled from there and got on a bus.
Yeah,
and they were able to track him to the bus station, and I think they got an idea of what city he went to.
So here's my opinion on this. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen the Boondock Saints or not. If you do, I highly suggest watching it. It's been one of my, if I need to fall asleep really quickly and I need something on as background noise, Boondock Saints has been my go-to for probably about 15 years now. But I feel like this very much kind of shares that storyline, and in that movie, America kind of responded the same way that they are right now. So I'm not surprised, from what I've seen of the pictures, terribly ugly man. No.
A fucking heartthrob.
I know.
It's insane how this incredibly attractive man just kills someone in broad daylight, and the girls are like, but he's cute though.
I know.
It's terrible.
Charles Manson got married so many times in prison. This guy is just gonna have the time of his life.
All of America is rooting for this guy right now, and it's weird.
It's wild.
It's weird.
That's why I said it kind of follows the premise of the Boondock Saints, where it's like, okay, a different, they were killing mobsters. This guy's killing CEOs. Like,
did you see they had a lookalike contest in New York City?
No, I did not.
Yes, they had a lookalike contest and somebody won.
It shouldn't be that hard to have your faces covered by a mask.
Well, they were all in like the coat and the backpack, and then they said they found the backpack and it had Monopoly money in it.
This guy,
he's hard not to root for,
I know.
Even though he did something just heinous, but everyone's kind of like, meh.
This brings up the question of Americans, like,
yeah.
Who are we as a people that we are voting?
We're disgusting, bro. We're so bad. Well, okay, so we're not like bad. I mean, like, Syria pretty much is ran by Al Qaeda as of today, and they're saying, pray for the Christians that are there because of what may happen when Al Qaeda takes over.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're not bad as a country, because that's a totally different, on the spectrum of what, good and bad, and we're just hilarious at being bad.
We are just, I feel like the entire, not country, but the entire world just kind of looks at us like, you got that one cousin, you're like, they did some time.
Yeah.
They always bring the Henny to the party.
Yeah, we're...
got a joint tucked behind her, a Newport tucked behind her ear, and it's like, man, that cousin is going to steal your fucking muscle relaxers, but you love them just the same.
Yeah.
I feel like that's who we are as a country, as a people. I don't want to say one way or another my opinion on this man because we're biased journalists.
Right. Right.
But I'm curious. I'm curious to see where this goes. I am kind of leaning towards the direction of what is his next move. I don't feel like this is a one and done kind of deal. Yeah. I feel like he, and the funniest thing is that they pulled down all the CEO information on all the major healthcare insurance sites. And so I kind of feel like people are like preliminarily thinking that he's going to do it again. And I'm just curious. I'm curious where it's all going to go. I like intelligence. This is my thing. This is my whole podcast. This is a learning experience. I love to learn. I like a mystery. I like to wonder, okay, what's the next step going to be? You know what I mean? What's their next step going to be? Because obviously this is a major cry for help in our nation. And I get it. It's a death. It's a tragedy, but it's like, this is what we've had to come to. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And it's like, this is how you get people to listen. Well, I'm curious, very curious to see where this is going to go. I'm curious if and when he is caught, because I don't think I don't know.
I don't think he's going to get caught. I think this guy's in the wind.
I think he's done this before.
Yeah, he looks like he was very comfortable.
He is just cool as a cucumber in a bowl of hot sauce.
At first, they thought that when he shot him, the gun jammed, so he had to adjust it. But come to find out that the specific gun that he used, you have to reload it every time you shoot. So he was there for a while shooting this guy, and every bullet casing had a message on it. Yes. And that I think it was something. Deny, defend, depose.
Yeah, which deny our claims, defend themselves, and depose means to get rid of.
And that's actually the name of a book. Yep. That is about pretty much what was it? Something I can't remember. Something to do about, I think, overthrowing healthcare or something about healthcare.
How they string it along and whatnot. I mean, and this is all true talk. Now, as someone who's a barber, we have to buy our own insurance through Marketplace. You're on your own. I'm a private contractor. I made moves in my career to get insurance and things through corporations and whatnot. And it's like, even then, I mean, dental work, how do you go and you get a tooth pulled? It's like, what, $200? Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, I'm sitting on, one or two that need to go right now, but it's like, it's almost Christmas. I got bills to pay. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And they want their money right up, which I get, because how many years have we spent and be like, I'm going to get you later. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's like, I totally get it. But then therein lies the fact that we just kind of are like, unless I'm really bleeding, I'm good, Yeah. And, like I said, you're really tired. You make yourself a pot of sludge coffee. I'm good to go.
Yep.
Let's go.
Turn it up.
Yep. So I'm very curious. Stay tuned, because I'm sure that we will cover this more. There's, obviously we're following it along.
There's a lot of meat on that bone.
Yes. I love the reactions, on the internet. Just the people of America. We are just one ant farm project that I feel like is kind of going haywire.
We're nuts, man.
I know.
We're nuts.
I know.
I think we're cooked.
Yeah.
We might be cooked.
Speaking of nuts, so another interesting news story I saw amongst my research about JonBenét Ramsey and this I'm coining him the healthcare killer. It just kind of rolls off. I would not be surprised.
HCK.
Yes, there you go. Ooh, like BTK.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Is there some correlation? Stay tuned to find out.
I know, right?
But another nutty thing in the media is, Donald Trump released that he was going to tell us the truth about Roswell and the aliens. So on one hand, I'm very upset that Donald Trump has access to this information before I do.
Real quick. Okay, so when did he announce this?
I saw it amongst my Googlings. I'm actually not sure of the truthness behind this, but
I've been saying for the past 3-4 months or 2-3 months since he's won the election, or I guess that's just a month, we're gonna get aliens.
Yeah, that I kind of feel like is on our bingo card.
Yeah, Donald Trump. We got COVID last time.
Yeah.
This time we're getting aliens.
We get adorable assassin and aliens.
Yeah.
I don't doubt that this is real. Like I said, I was kind of like just looking and it popped up, and I'll do more research into the validity of it. But it's just interesting in concept. Period. I feel like Donald Trump in particular has a lot of just like blind followers, and I feel like a lot of his followers are the type that would be like, aliens don't exist. They don't go to my union job. You know what I mean? And no offense, we love a good union boy, but you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
And so I feel like having Donald Trump, first of all, do it obviously primarily as a show of power. Like, look what I did.
Yeah, he's really trying to prove a point this time around.
I know. So I feel like it is almost perfect for him to be the one to announce it. Because if he is the one to say, hey, Roswell is real, we covered it up, you know what I mean? It is out there, we are in connection. I feel like people will be like, oh, shit.
If he does something like that, then he's going to be one of those Lincoln, Washington, Roosevelt
and that
presidents.
Is his purpose, though.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
He wants to be bigger than Reagan.
Yes, the Beatles of presidents, if you will.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Which
isn't that the most Donald Trump thing, though?
Yes.
The fact that I want to be president, and when I'm president, I want to be the best president.
Yes.
No one's ever seen a president like this before.
Greatest president of all time.
The greatest president. They didn't make presidents like this before.
No, truly they have
That's
not.
So Donald Trump.
But I mean, like, the fact that this man has had 4 machination attempts in his election alone, I just bless his heart.
Yeah.
I
remember when the first one happened, and it's we haven't seen an assassination on a president in
not in my
lifetime.
No.
And it happened, and I remember, I can't remember who it was at CNN, Van Jones or something like that. He was like, you guys just handed him the election.
Yeah.
Donald Trump just won the election. All the way back then.
Like I said,
wild.
Our bingo card is just wild.
Yeah.
Like,
the things we love to see and the things we champion.
In the last 5 years, we have had a major pandemic. Donald Trump as president twice. Mothman sighted at O'Hare Airport. Stay tuned for more information about that. We will be covering the Chicagoland Mothman problem. It is a very serious problem that I think that we need to take. We need to take more seriously. And aliens on our bingo card. It would just be the icing. It would be the icing on top of the cake.
Change the world forever.
And truly, I do believe this because I think that, hypothetically speaking, were the aliens to sit down in the Oval Office, first of all, how do you think that they would come to us? Do you think that they would come to us like little green, like little, what are the other ones? They're grays with the big eyes? Or do you think that they would come, they say there's the Nordic, the Swedish, Icelandic looking
I don't think
aliens.
that they're going to have bodies.
You don't?
I think they're going to be like a substance or a type of cloud of something that we've never seen before. Not something, and I think that they would form themselves into a humanesque type body to not scare us off.
Yeah, to make us more comfortable.
Yeah, because whatever is out there, if they figured out how to get here, there's so much more that they figured out that we don't even know.
Yeah.
We couldn't even fathom.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. So
different densities and dimensions that we didn't even know existed.
I know. Space is ever expanding in infinite nothingness. And so, but my hypothetical thinking with this is, were they to sit down with Trump, I think they would be like, hey, listen, change your ways, or
you're done here.
Yeah, truly.
You're done.
You know, we are obviously
to be honest, I don't even think they would get that. Like, they would sit down with. But, I mean, in the hypothetical that they do, he would have some decisions to make.
Do you think that they would sit down with him, or do you think they would just broadcast, like right now, be like, beep, 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 greetings, Earthlings?
Yeah, I think it would be that. I think it would be something that they address us as Earth and not as country, because they wouldn't fucking know anyway. They would look at Earth, people on Earth, you know, hey, you there, and you there could be like Canada, Russia, you know, Eurasia. Yeah. And now they're just talking to Canada, Russia, and Eurasia, speaking for everyone, and we're not even in the loop. So, you know, you just never know how that's going to play out. But I think they would be coming to, if someone's reaching out, and I think they would only be reaching out to conquer.
Yeah. See, I want to always see the positive.
Yeah. I mean, you would like to think that they would want to communicate, but if they were looking to communicate, then we would have been communicating.
I don't know. I don't feel like the people as a public are ready. Yeah. Or maybe perhaps they are ready now. But like, you see, there was a crash in the 1950s and it was all covered up, you know. And so, because I feel like they felt like at that time the American public couldn't handle it. Whereas now we're in more of a woke phase in the earth, I think, in general. I think that, you know, like Travis Scott said last episode, you have to get through what is the word? Dystopia to get to utopia. Yeah. And I think that same thing might apply here. I like to think that they would come and they would say, hey, you know, I don't think that they're like, I think they're superior beings, like, for us. You know what I mean? Perhaps they're spirit guides or something of the nature, where I feel like hopefully they would be like, hey, change your ways, because if not, it's going to lead to the deterioration of the earth. Yeah. Not change your ways or we're going to like annihilate you with laser beams. This is the end style.
Well, I did hear a theory that aliens are not aliens. Aliens are just time travelers, which explains why they would want to get out of the way or move out of the way whenever we attempt to reach them or see them. And there was a gentleman who, I think a scientist, but he took, you know, the different skulls from you know, from the ape times all the way up into how we evolve, and he had AI continue the evolution, and like hundreds of thousands of years or something, we end up evolving into those weirdly shaped head.
Yeah, see, that would make sense.
Silver people,
right?
So that was one explanation, but then that still doesn't explain where, if they're in the future, that still doesn't explain what else is out there.
Well, then that could lead back to the Big Bang Theory, where they say everything is always at once and it's come and gone and already, and we're just living it out in slow motion. So if that were possible, or if that's technically the theory, that would mean that we could have evolved for millions of years into an alien species and are just playing out the gradual.
Yeah. Oh, that's crazy. This is part of someone else's existence.
Yeah. But then there's the fact that, like, are we the main characters in our story? Is anybody, you know what I mean? You think about, like, when you're driving down the road and you're looking in a car, you see a guy that's picking his nose and you're like, wonder what that guy's going through. Like, I wonder how his life is.
And the way that I see them, they don't even see themselves.
That's what I'm saying.
They're just seeing it how they, you know, it's just life.
Yeah, but are they even real? Or are you the center of the universe and they're just background, like, RPG, like non-player characters? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know.
That's wild.
Maybe this story's all about me and I'm just, I'm the entertainment.
Right.
You guys are all my entertainment.
Right.
I don't know. This is
So
way
nuts.
This is way too much.
Are we going to talk about John?
Yeah.
She died first since we should
Yes. Okay. So, all right. JonBenét. These are serious. You see what happens when you make me do research. I know. You go send me down this JonBenét rabbit hole, which of course was my idea.
Yeah.
But then I go Trump and aliens. I go Mothman. I go Shaq. There's always sometimes when I need to ground, I just go to Google Image and I just look up pictures of Shaq and I just have hope.
What do you think he's gonna do when you meet him? Give you a lifetime supply of Papa John's?
No, I just want to give you a smooch.
Oh, he's always down for that.
Just a little smooch. Like maybe he could have me on Family Feud. I could get a kiss from like Steve Harvey and him. Like
you're going hard for Shaq. Have you ever been around a human that's even like big like that?
My grandfather was big like that, and I think that's why I have a weird attraction to it.
You have granddaddy issues?
No, but my grandfather was he was like 6'6", 6'7", like Shaq.
Oh, okay.
He's smaller than Shaq.
Yeah.
But he was just like a big old guy that, I don't know. Don't leave.
No, those humans they're dead.
No, I'm blushing.
That's wild.
You want to hear a funny story about my grandpa?
Sure.
When he was so tall, we went on vacation when I was a kid to Tennessee. And there were people from Asian descent that they were there, and they were very small, like 4 foot tall, but grown, And so they stopped my grandfather to take a picture with them so that way they could go back home and prove how big Americans got.
That's crazy.
So, yeah, I like them real big and juicy.
Just how you said that was funny. It's like... I just came back from America. Those Americans got so big, man.
Yeah, that's what they're going
Remember,
on.
we used to be like, but now they're like...
Yes, exactly.
That's wild.
Exactly. So just, what up, Shaq?
Yeah.
I need to stop mentioning him. This is now a total of like 9 times.
That's okay.
But
Get your shit off.
It is a running joke in my life, really, that I want Shaq here. Right here. All 375 pounds of him.
I don't think my chair could take that.
I will go to the Big Lots and buy a reinforced recliner for him.
That's a big man.
Speaking of big men, let's talk about the opposite. Let's talk about a little tiny girl. Because if not, we're going to be here until 11 o'clock at night.
Yep.
All right. So all silliness aside, let's talk about JonBenét Patricia Ramsey. So this one is wild because JonBenét was born on August 6, 1990. My birthday is also in August. Mm-hmm. She's a year younger than me. So she would be 34 now. Mm-hmm. She would be turning, I believe, 35 this December. Mm-hmm. And so it's just kind of wild because we're both that age, you know what I mean? Where it's just the thought of like... you think of being a kid in the 90s, and it's like every generation says this, where they're like, oh, back in my day, it was so much better and stuff like that. But, like, we are the last generation where, like, we really played outside, like, we were really kids, you know what I mean? But then we got, like, hardcore exposed to the internet at the same time.
Yeah.
So, and it was just, I remember this from when I was a child, it happening. And...
yeah. What a transition, man.
I know. Yeah, right? Are you talking about in our conversation?
No. Transition like as us being the generation that got to play outside and do all the things, but at the same time, we're internet babies. All at the same time. Like, the generation before, and my parents, they didn't have internet at all. It was so in the generation after us, that's all they have. I know. So it's weird to be in that middle spot of the rest of the rest of time that was before the internet and there was after, and we're just like smack dab in the middle.
Yeah, just a
pivotal moment in the world history.
And this was like one of the first things that I remember being like a huge tragedy in my lifetime. Like, it was like this, Columbine, 9/11.
Right.
Like, those are the three
Yeah.
major things that pop out in my head that I remember very distinctly. And at this time, I was 7 years old when this happened, you
Yeah.
know, so it was that big of a deal. And you want to talk about, like, a case of media manipulation. Holy shit. Like, and this is why I kind of wanted to touch on, like, the alien thing and whatnot, you know, and the health care killer, because it's just like, with this case alone, like, the media totally manipulated this, and it's just like, imagine what else.
Yeah, and
It's
this was
everything.
imagine what else, because this was done very recklessly. This was probably the most reckless I've seen.
Yes.
Reckless and arrogance from Boulder Police Department, just being incredibly arrogant to a fault, and just the media just taking it and running with it. I mean, this little girl's been missing as long as we can remember.
Yeah.
Like, I can't remember a time in my head when this little girl wasn't missing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, I just, like, that this case hasn't been, like, so prominent. And then getting into the research of it, like, it started in 1996, and then just over the years just got rehashed in so many different, like, ways. This is the OG cold case. It is still an open cold case to this day. Like, that is astounding. 30 years. But then again, people go missing every single day. Never get found. You know what I mean? And thankfully she did get found. But in what a horrible way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the details. JonBenét was born in Atlanta, Georgia. She lived there for about a year. JonBenét Ramsey is her father, and then her Patricia is Patricia Patsy Ramsey. She does have a brother named Burke. So they lived in Atlanta when she was born, and then about a year into her life, maybe 2, they moved to Boulder because things started to get really big with John's business. So they purchased a house in Boulder. Now, from what I understand, Patsy was a beauty queen. So she had competed in beauty challenges, or beauty competitions and whatnot, and she had won, and so did her sister. She had a sister named Pam. They were both beauty queen winners and stuff, and also competed for Miss America. So that's a little background. John was obviously in a very successful business for all intents and purposes. At that point, he was a billionaire. So they moved into this house over in Boulder, and it was like very, like, Patsy made it very show worthy. Like, and they spent a lot of money and put a lot of time into it and whatnot. And the layout of the house was just very odd. I feel like, I'm not sure if they built that house. I don't think that they did, but just the layout in general was weird.
Yeah. So many stairs.
Yeah, and so many, like, little nooks and crannies and stuff. But that goes back to, like, I wonder if everything happens for a reason. Like, is the house set up in a weird way for this to have happened? You know what I mean? In the grand scheme of things, I don't know. So they lived there for quite a while. They were prominent in the community, well-known family, very rich family. And so they had a lot of friends in the area. And the Ramseys were big in the pageantry circles. So, with Patricia being a former winner and Patsy being a former winner, they really pushed that pageantry life on JonBenét. Let's just, first of all, do you think that it's odd that they named her JonBenét Patricia Ramsey, which is a combination of JonBenét Ramsey and Patsy Ramsey's first name? Like, I just think that's kind of odd. You know what I mean? And it's been said that they gave her a very specific name. It was only for her. Like, JonBenét combined his name to make JonBenét. I think that's weird.
Was she older or younger than the brother?
She was younger. She was the baby. There was actually 4 total. There was 2
that were adults. One of those had died.
Yes, died in a car crash very young. Yes.
And then that was in the second marriage.
They had Berkey and or Burke.
Yeah.
And
so
JonBenét.
So it's just funny to me that they went through all those lengths with her name when Burke is just Burke and he was born first.
Right, that's what I'm saying. And I get that she was like probably the baby. They were around our age when they had her and whatnot. So it does make sense to me that she would be like the baby, the perfect one, the idolized one.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know what I mean? But just to give her, now then again, that goes back to, does everything happen for a reason? Was she given this very specific name because she was meant to be a very specific person? Mm-hmm. I don't know. That's all stuff that goes through my mind.
Because whenever you think of the name JonBenét, you don't think of anyone else. I've never met anyone by that name. It's not like
exactly.
It's not even that. It's not a common name. Like no one's named that.
Exactly. So I really think that maybe she was given this role, this name for a reason to stick out. Now, she was big in the beauty pageant circuit by 4. She had won so many different awards. For example, Little Miss Colorado, Little America's Royal Miss, Little Miss Charveau, which I believe is, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but that's the town that they lived in, one of the towns that they lived in. Colorado All-Star Kids, National Tiny Miss Beauty, Colorado Little Miss Christmas.
That's funny because in the documentary, they downplayed it and made it seem like it's just pageants that she wanted to do. We just let the kids have fun. Yeah. And they made it seem like, wasn't that big of their part of their lives, and it wasn't that big of a deal.
It definitely, I believe, was a big deal. She had won, obviously, there's 7 titles there right off the bat. And, there's so much more probably.
It's a lot bigger deal in her life. That just makes more sense of what type of person would target her because she had that popularity.
Exactly.
That actually, I've never once thought that it was the parents that did it, but that definitely makes a lot of sense why someone would, it doesn't make sense, but that if someone was looking for a kid, that, that's probably where they would start.
Exactly. So this was a very prominent part of JonBenét's life. They said that she bleached out her hair, applied makeup. These costumes cost hundreds of dollars, handmade, and this is something that we did see on Toddlers and Tiaras back in the early 2000s where, there are these hardcore pageant parents that, they go tan and these kids, these 6-year-old, 7, 8-year-old girls that are going tanning, they're applying makeup, they're getting hair dyes, hair extensions and whatever. And really, I feel like after this happened with JonBenét, it kind of put a spotlight on the pageantry world where that kind of all took a sideways turn or a backseat, I should say. And is that, I believe that's a good thing, and then we had the exposure to Toddlers and Tiaras where it was like, and then you see behind the scenes of what's really going on because it is rumored that Patsy was, for all intents and purposes, a pageant mom, like a hardcore pageant mom, you know, and she made JonBenét do performances. She arranged actually at her school for Christmas for JonBenét to perform at her school. Now imagine how you would feel being like a 6-year-old girl in school, in kindergarten, and your mother arranges for you to perform for the whole entire school by yourself. It's wild.
Yeah, it's just funny because the documentary doesn't spend enough time talking about how much of a pageant mom she was.
Oh, yeah.
It just made it seem like it was like a hobby, something she just occasionally did on the side. But yeah, it's huge. Like if she's that popular, in that type of world and has that type of comprehension and talent,
Yes, there are reports of they traveled a lot. They obviously had a lot of money. So she it was rumored to speak French. She was rumored to play the violin, and she wanted to be an Olympic ice skater. So this is obviously a little girl from a very prominent family that has every opportunity in the world. Mother's an ex-beauty queen. I feel like the father, John, I'm assuming he is kind of like a businessman, do what your mother says, kind of, parent and whatnot.
Yeah.
So
I was just thinking about all the footage they had of vacations and stuff they went on and stuff like that. Think about what kind of family can afford to go at that time, afford to go on these lavish vacations and do all these things and have this house with all the toys and things like that. They just looked like a pretty well off family, so.
Yeah, right. And that kind of makes you wonder because I feel like there are valid reasons for people to believe that John and Patsy did do it. Obviously, like, beside the manipulation, they were trying to pin it on them. It is all very weird.
Yeah, it's wild that they stuck with that so hard.
Oh my God, yes. Well, they were trying to pin it, but then it's like, again, the perfect American household for all intents and purposes.
Yeah.
What did we really not see? That's why, they blame them. They blame Burke even.
Yeah.
There are rumors. I've read reports that Burke hit JonBenét in the face, maybe accidentally. I'm sure it was an accident. When he was younger, she was hit in the face by a golf club by him, and Patsy rushed her to the plastic surgeon because this was, things that her face obviously was very important in order to
That's nuts.
be a beauty queen. So, like I said, there's you never know. So let's talk about the day that JonBenét was killed and found, because I'm curious. I have my perspective on this and my inkling of what I would do in that situation. I'm very curious of what your thoughts are that you would do. I'm curious what everybody else's thoughts are on what they would do in that situation. So 5:45 a.m. on December 26, 1996, Patsy Ramsey woke up. She did not wake up Burke. She went into, supposedly, there's mixed stories. You know what I mean? It's so like, she said, he said, she said, back and forth. I've heard reports that she woke up and went to check on JonBenét and wasn't there, or she woke up and went downstairs. Either way, it doesn't really matter which way it went. She woke up, JonBenét was not in her bed, and she found the quote unquote war and peace of ransom notes at the foot of her kitchen stairs. So there's lots of criticism about the steps taken from this point, right? Because what is your first instinct as a parent? Say, okay, so necessarily if you wake up, you check your child's bed and they're gone. When you have a big house, downstairs, kitchen, whatnot, like, you wouldn't initially panic that they were not in their bed.
No.
But then she goes downstairs and she finds a 2.5-page ransom note. So what do you do in that case? I have the ransom note right here in front of it, in its entirety, and I probably will read, if not graze through it. But what is your first instinct when you find a ransom note? Now, my first instinct, I feel like before I even called the cops, I would just be like, where the fuck is my kid?
Yeah.
I feel like I would go straight to the kid's bedroom. I probably would have destroyed evidence because I probably would have flipped the mattress, ransacked the closets, and I would have torn the house up every square inch from top to bottom looking for that kid. And when I did not find him or her, that's when I would call the cops.
So it's kind of weird because the ransom note said if you contact the police or anyone, we're going to kill your kid.
Yes.
And then they immediately... Like, why can't you just at least try to do what they want you to do first?
See, but I don't feel like I would have that first instinct. I feel like I'd be like, get the cops on the phone.
Yeah, well, I mean, okay, so the ransom note, wasn't it requesting money?
Yeah, okay, so here is, we'll break this down because I got it in front of me. So first of all, this was written on stationery that belonged to Patsy Ramsey. So this was written in the house, and it was 2.5 pages long, which I would assume would require at least 15 minutes of writing. So here's what it says. It says that they are a group of individuals that represent a small foreign faction. That is just weird. It's just weird in general. I mean, if they are a small foreign faction... I don't know. It says that they respect his business, but not the country that it serves. So it's a small foreign faction that respects John, but not our country.
Again, this is all very weird because the entire documentary didn't
right
too much dive into any of that.
Right. It says that they have we have your daughter in our possession. So was this a kidnapping that was prearranged? Did they write this note beforehand and then leave it? Why would you murder a kid and leave her in the basement? And then, I would assume like you're going to look in your house. You know what I mean? If you wake up and your kid is not in the place that they should be at 5:45 in the morning, you're going to ransack the whole entire house. So I would assume that you would know you were going to find the kid's body. So why even say that they had her in their possession to begin with? They say she is safe and unharmed, and if you want her to see 1997, you must follow our instructions to the letter. So again, kid's already murdered. Why even?
Yeah, but at this point, they don't know the kid's murdered, so why didn't they attempt to do what the kidnapper wanted them to do?
But the kidnappers know that she's dead, obviously.
No. You got to think about it. What if there really were kidnappers and the kidnappers really did have her and they had her alive, and because they didn't follow the directions, they killed the kid?
That means that they would be in the house the entire time that they were investigating. Just wait. So they say that John Ramsey has to withdraw $118,000 from his account. $100,000 will be in $100 bills, and remaining $18,000 in $20 bills. Very odd. And then here's what makes me laugh. They say to put the money in a brown paper bag. Where are you shopping? I mean, I guess if it's like a big brown paper bag, but I'm thinking like a lunch bag. Like yeah. John Ramsey is just like, here's your $118,000 with my tuna sandwich. But I guess it's just all very odd. It says that when you get home, you will put the money in a brown paper bag. I will call you between 8 and 10 tomorrow to instruct you on delivery. The delivery will be exhausting, so I advise you to be rested. Where were they going to make him go? Like, I don't. What are they making him do? Like, I'm
mind blown because they didn't go over this detailed.
You know who did? Me.
Yeah.
It's all that good ADHD autism. My God, that makes me hyper focused. Yes, it's all very odd. Like, what are you? I'm imagining like a Mario quest. Like they're making him like run through shit and like dodge. But like, what?
And he just said, and the whole time he just said, "No, fuck that. I'm gonna call the police."
Right. Again, another odd thing. They said that they'll call him between 8 and 10 a.m. on, which I assume would be the 27th. You know what I mean? That they would call him between 8 and 10 a.m. and instruct him on how to deliver. They said that we will monitor you getting the money early. We will, and if we see that you're getting the money early, then we'll call you to possibly arrange dropping JonBenét off early.
Wild.
It says any deviation of my instructions will result in the immediate execution of your daughter. You will also be denied her remains for proper burial. The two gentlemen watching over your daughter do not particularly like you, so I advise you not to provoke them. Speaking to anyone about your situation, such as police, FBI, etc., will result in your daughter being beheaded. If we catch you talking to a stray dog, she dies. If you alert bank authorities, she dies. If the money is in all way marked or tampered with, she dies. It says you will be scanned for electronic devices, and if any are found, she dies. You can try to deceive us, but be warned that we are familiar with the law. Countermeasures and tactics. So, yeah, see, this has also been brought up to me how weird it is that they have this note that says that if they contact anybody, she will die. And they did contact people or the authorities. But I feel like I would do the same thing. Like, how are you equipped to deal with that? You know what I mean?
Well, the crazy thing is, what if there is no kid? I mean, not that there isn't a kidnapper, but why would someone write all that if they just already had killed her?
I know. So could it be it's exactly what it says it is, that maybe
or could they have just fed them a story to get them off the trail?
Well, yeah, that's all theories. I mean, it's all very weird. I love if you talk to a stray dog. She dies.
If you say talk to a stray dog,
Yeah,
if you breathe funny,
yes, I mean truly, and they're tracking your every move, like. But she's already dead. So if it was hypothetically speaking a kidnapping, I mean, it doesn't make sense because in the ransom they asked for that $118,000. So come to find out, John Ramsey admitted that his Christmas bonus for the previous year was close. It was a little tiny fraction over $118,000. So it was somebody who knew what he made, which makes me believe that it was somebody A, he worked with, or somebody B, that he was a close friend with. Because would it be public knowledge?
No.
Exactly. So if it wasn't public knowledge, it would either have to be an employee or a boss. Or somebody like, I mean, shit, if I made I don't know. If I made $118,000, I'd probably go to Hawaii and cut hair on a beach.
That was just a bonus.
That's what I'm saying.
So, I mean, if that's not even, what if it's not even like 10% of what he actually makes?
No, it's not. Like I said, by all intents and purposes, he was a billionaire in that time, where it was weird that they said that they wanted the $118,000 ransom because they could have got so much more out of him.
Yeah.
So at this point, they're thinking their kid is, kidnapped. I mean, like I said, my first instinct would be turn over every inch of that house. And then, I would probably call the police because when it comes to this kind of situation, I mean, I would probably include on the phone that maybe it was but then again, you hear Patsy Ramsey's phone call and she's frantic.
Yeah.
She's just distraught. It can't make one way or the other. And I get it. I probably would have been the same way.
Yeah.
So the ending of this note says that they are under constant scrutiny. It says, you and your family are under constant scrutiny as well as the authorities. Don't try to grow a brain. You are not the only fat cat around, so don't think that killing will be difficult. Don't underestimate us. Use that good Southern common sense of yours. It is up to you now. And then it says victory, SBTC. It's just weird. And I feel like half of our entire podcast has been me saying, it's weird.
That is weird.
I know. So nobody knew what SBTC looked. Nobody knew what it meant.
And at one point, no one cared.
Yeah. It just
went away.
Well, so after this note was found, they called the cops. The cops responded within 3 minutes of this phone call from Patsy Ramsey. Now, here's a funny thing. In that time, that 3 minutes that the cops were taking to get there or whatever, Patsy Ramsey had called family and friends. And I think that I would do the same. My thinking is, had I woken up to this situation where my child was gone and I found a ransom note, I would turn over the house, call the cops, ditch the cell phone, and I would go to the neighbors. Have you seen my kid? Have you seen anything? Which, come to find out, there were reports from the neighbors.
Really?
Yes. So apparently there was a report from two neighbors, one claiming that he was up around midnight and had seen lights on in the kitchen of the Ramsey house. And a separate neighbor had claimed that she heard screaming from the Ramsey house around the same time. So is this accurate, or maybe is it just people trying to get their 2 minutes of, 15 minutes of fame?
Wow.
Exactly. But if that was the case, now here's the other thing. I heard that Patsy Ramsey's room and JonBenét's room were very closely located. Patsy had just had a scare with cancer, ovarian cancer.
Yeah.
So she wanted to be very close to JonBenét. So to my understanding, Patsy's room was close to JonBenét's, and then there was a guest room. So now supposedly in this guest room, they found rope, which they still have today, which John is trying to push them to get DNA testing on. So how was none of this heard? Now, as we see per the documentary, there was speculation about a stun gun. Why was this just dismissed? What did you think that this was? When there's burn marks on a child, especially in you're a police worker, you should have experience with what taser stun gun marks look like. But if you didn't think that they were taser or gun marks, why would you not think that they were cigarette burns or something of the like?
Yeah, what did you think they were?
That's what I'm saying. Why was that not more prominent in the autopsy and all this information? First of all, okay, so there's theories on this with it being a crime of passion in the Ramsey family. If it was, why would they have stun gunned their child?
Right.
Weird.
Yeah, and also if you go back to the whole ransom note message and how they apparently evade the law.
Yeah.
It makes you feel like, well, was it someone in law enforcement?
Yes, which I have my theories about that as well.
And they're trying to cover themselves up is why they did such a shitty job with everything.
I have my theories about that as well. It blows my mind that they never looked into the SBTC.
Yeah.
Now, in this time in the 90s, there probably was not much that they could do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you call the cops and the cops were like, fuck if I know. And you don't know.
There's no internet.
No, exactly. Yeah. Now, my little crime sleuths out there, because I know there are so many of you that love solving crimes. Why don't you look into that? Why don't we try and Google, if you will, dark net things we knew about that when it was now the dark web. Speaking of that, when we were kids, it was out in the open. Now, I would not even know how to access that. I'd be too afraid. So if you are that kind of person and you love that kind of shit, you should look into this SVTC.
That weird faction.
Foreign factions. Yes. And see if we can get to the bottom of this. Because like I said, this was just absolutely dismissed. She calls Patsy Ramsey in this time after finding this note and calling the police. She calls 4 family friends. So there are 2 families that they have close by that they are very close friends with. And I believe that they were with at a Christmas dinner the night before. So she calls them, and this kind of makes sense to me. You know what I mean? Again, complete disregard for the note. But A, if you knew the note was bullshit, or B, you were just so hysterical, not clear thinking, which is obviously in that scenario typically the case. I feel like I would do the same thing as well. Call my close personal, friends, especially in the surrounding neighborhood. I'm going knocking on doors. Yeah. Let me search your house. I do not need a warrant for that. Yeah, I do, but that, like Jay-Z says, you're gonna need a warrant for that. That's what I would do personally. So that all checks out to me. I know that there's hella criticism about the way that she handled things.
If there was an actual killer and the killer said, don't piss me off, she definitely pissed him off.
One way or another, the kid's gone. So,
yeah. Yeah, that's wild.
What would you have done?
What the killer said to do?
What would you have done in general?
Just waited it out for a little bit.
You would have, because they were supposed to come between that 9 and 10 o'clock mark, so you would have waited it out. See, now there was speculation that they didn't call the police. See, it's all very wishy-washy.
Yeah.
A lot of this comes from Steve Thomas's personal novel I read many, many years ago. I refreshed up to do this. And Steve Thompson, the main detective on the case, as we know, not the most credible.
No.
So this is all,
you read that book?
I have read it. Yeah. This is before I owned this years ago.
Really?
Yes. Because I've always been a true crime.
Did you know that he was on bullshit when you read it?
No, because at the time that I
law.
Yeah, well, I got this book maybe about like 2017, 2018. It was like law as far as what was out about JonBenét at that time. So I did read it, and I remember being very instinctively like, parents did it. Or Burke did it. I thought Burke did it. That made sense to me. Having Burke. So having JonBenét be who she was, like you said in the beginning, she was, Burke just got a normal name, and JonBenét is JonBenét Patricia Ramsey.
Yeah. I get that.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was my initial instinct, was that it made sense to me that Burke, in a fit of rage, killed her. They said that there was pineapple left over on the table that John and Patsy Ramsey, didn't remember giving to JonBenét. So this scenario implies, and now again, how do you remember as a parent shit's out of place unless they did have a show house where something like that would be out of place and noticeable?
Well, also, that string and rope and all that other stuff. If it was Burke, it's kind of hard to explain that.
Exactly. But my initial instinct per reading the novel the first time was that perhaps in the middle of the night, it would make sense for Burke to be jealous. There were two older siblings. One had died. There was obviously a lot of attention over that. JonBenét was born and was probably honestly the replacement daughter.
Yeah.
She was already born, I believe, when the sister died, I want to say. But I'm sure that they clung to her as like a way to cope with that death.
Yeah.
So it would make sense to me that if JonBenét was getting all the attention, she was a beloved favorite child, she was the, dancer, she was their golden goose.
Yeah.
It would make sense to me that maybe they woke up, he woke up, she woke up, followed him downstairs. They got this pineapple snack. It was rumored that pineapple is JonBenét's absolute favorite snack. It would make sense that something happened, or maybe he just wanted an excuse to kill her, and it just happened. And they said that there was a flashlight that was out of place in the kitchen. Now we later find out that JonBenét was killed because her skull was crushed, and apparently the flashlight that was out of place in the kitchen matched the indentation on JonBenét's head.
Did they DNA test it?
They did, and they didn't find anything on it except for Patsy Ramsey's handprints, which is touch DNA. It's all over everything. They also, I'm getting ahead of myself here, but JonBenét, on her clothes, they also found fibers from John's sweater. But on her underwear. But if you were to wash it together, wouldn't it make sense?
And he was the one who found her and carried her up the stairs.
Exactly. So that was my initial thought, was that Burke had done it and that the parents covered it up, but then you see now the footage of John and Patsy Ramsey. And now here's my thing. I've spent a lot of time studying this type of bullshit, and I've studied actual human tells, to tell if somebody's lying. Their eyes will shift a different way. They'll shift in their seat. They do certain things with their hands. There's just a lot of tells that a human will do unknowingly, unless they are a literal sociopath, where they can control those triggers themselves. There are people out there who can control their heart rates when it comes to a lie detector test to be able to pass it. So unless you are skilled in sociopathy, enough to be able to hide those common human tells, to my knowledge and my thought, I don't feel like the interviews portrayed anything that would allude to them being the killers.
Not based off their body language, but
right.
You also have to remember the wife was battling cancer the entire time.
Yeah, which you would think that would make her even more distraught. She was actually in remission when JonBenét was killed, but then, she died later of ovarian cancer, which, God, what a bitch. I can only imagine. Shoot, that's a bitch to die of ovarian cancer.
I thought you meant her being a bitch.
No.
Yeah.
No, cancer's a bitch.
Yeah.
Is what I meant.
No, it sucks that she didn't get a chance to figure out, for it to come to a resolution.
Right. So after they have the police in the house, John is reported to be very stoic. Very emotionless. There was rumored that he had checked the mail during which he says that he was checking for any additional correspondence, notes, things like that. That makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he had to be the one to remain calm. Mm-hmm. Patsy was hysterical, which all checks out.
Keep in mind, during that time, they didn't yet know that it was a murder.
Right.
At that point in time, everyone was operating under the kidnapping.
Yes.
And so that's why there were so many people at the house. And they said that it looked odd that they had coffee and bagels and tea and stuff out. But at that time, it was a kidnapping. They didn't know that she was actually dead.
Right. And I, not only did they have these two families and actually one of the men in the two families, two couples that were there, they did find JonBenét with John. But... yeah, they had even the minister was there,
Yeah.
And so I think that's funny because this all kind of, in my opinion, went down in this idyllic Colorado town, very safe. But then later there are reports that in that area alone, within a 2-mile radius of JonBenét's house, there were 36 registered sex offenders. And also, there was in that time around 100 reported burglaries in the Boulder area. So there was obviously crime afoot around the area. Where, yeah, I mean, I think that all checks out as far as if they thought that it was a kidnapping, that they would call the authorities, that they would call friends. Now, they also did have victim advocates come through. And then when the police arrive there, that's where things get really weird. Now, I want to note that the handwriting that they show of the note, it is very feminine looking, which is why I originally kind of thought that perhaps it was Patsy covering up for Burke or even John, because it is a very feminine handwriting. But again, my handwriting is like that of I don't know, like somebody gave a squirrel a doctorate and then they were just
They
drinking
did
coffee.
clear Patsy and John for the handwriting as well.
Yes, absolutely. But then again, that is very odd that it was written, if it was a faction, was it written by a female that knew that this was all happening?
Right.
To be pre-left, or was it just a man with very feminine handwriting? I don't know. The length, I said 2.5 pages. That's wild. They had to be in there at least a couple, just 15 minutes writing that note, 20 minutes, but then I almost am leaning towards maybe they had it originally, you know what I mean, set up and ready to go, and things just kind of went wrong. But then I correct myself. It was written on Patsy Ramsey's stationery, and I said that in the beginning. So this exact note was written on, I believe, her stationery, and there was a draft. Right. So they had to write this while they were in the house. So therefore, they had to take their time to sit down while...
And have so much confidence that no one's going to find them.
Right. And the audacity. But then again, it's a big house, 6,500 square foot, I believe. I mean, you're talking probably, it was 3 levels, a lot of, would you hear? Especially considering Patsy Ramsey is just stereotypical 90s mommy little helper wife.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, honey, I'm just going to take 6 Valium and go to bed, chase it down with a dry
also
martini.
they were like 4 floors up.
Yep.
In the house.
The night before was Christmas. They were at a big party and everything, so...
They were so high up, and then to be in the basement, because I think it's the parents' level, the kids' level, and then like the regular level, and then the basement.
Yeah, it was just weirdly set up, almost like a jigsaw puzzle, almost just odd. I think it's funny though that they had started this I think it's weird that they started this draft. That started off Mr. and Mrs. Ramsey, and then in the initial note, it does say Mr. Ramsey. So it was like, I at first was like, well, maybe Patsy was just doodling like Mr. and Mrs. Ramsey. That's possible. You never know. There were no fingerprints on the note except for Patsy Ramsey's.
Because it was her book, right?
Yeah, but how do you write? I mean, I guess if you had gloves, yeah. You think that they wore like doctor's notes gloves or doctor gloves?
I mean, if they're the murder, they've thought it out that far.
Obviously, but that's the thing. Was this thought out?
I mean, how else? If it wasn't thought out, then how else would they know how to get in?
Well, that's where more speculation on my part comes in. So no fingerprints on anything really, except for JonBenét. And everything is Patsy Ramsey's. All of the fingerprinting that they got. But 6 certified handwriting experts cleared Patsy's writing and John's and Burke. So they were pretty much originally totally cleared. Yeah. So, here's a thing that I wanted to point out. Here's a wild theory. Wild theory. So this $118,000 ransom note. So there are theories out there that it was $118,000 in reference to the Bible passage, Psalms 118. So, and this quotes, "Give thanks unto the Lord, for he is good, because his mercy endures forever." I think it's kind of far-fetched, but back to poor Kendrick Lamar. I've been calling Travis Scott Kendrick Lamar for weeks. But again, back to Travis Scott. You never know. It could be more. There could be more to the story. If the manipulation of the media is so profound, what else are we being manipulated on?
Yeah.
Just a weird case all over. Steve Thomas is the head detective on this case. This is what a momo.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah, totally. And he didn't have any experience dealing with homicide.
Yeah.
He had only dealt with, I believe, just kidnappings.
Right, because Boulder, there was no like.
And
That was the first homicide.
wasn't. Yeah, that was the first homicide they had that year.
Yeah.
And they were in December, so that's not something that they
Right.
see.
And I feel like I said, it's kind of like the idyllic town and where like stuff like this doesn't happen. And so it does make sense to me. But the blatant lies, like the lying, and again, talking about the tells in somebody being like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like that, his interviews, it's all over everywhere. You know, him just being nervous and like.
They even had him sit, I think it was on, I can't remember whose show it was, but they had him sit across from the parents, and then they just duked it out.
Oh, yeah. Larry King.
Larry King.
Larry King.
And then they just duked it out. Right to their faces. Right to each other's faces. I know you killed your daughter. Right to her face. Just
Imagine being in that situation, but then having fucking Larry King be like,
yeah. Right after this.
Yeah, you have to deal with like the gremlin that is Larry King, but then like also having to confront somebody that's like, you raped and killed your daughter.
Yeah, like right to your face. And I tried to put you in jail for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I could not imagine. If you want to read more into Steve Thomas and his perspective, lies, whatever it may be, potato, you can read JonBenét, The Inside Story of the Ramsey Murder Investigation. This is a book that I personally own. It is white with red writing and a picture of JonBenét on the cover. This is where a lot of this supposed speculations and whatnot come through. Which, is it true? You tell me. You know, so Steve Thomas comes in the house. And there's a lady detective. P.S. How creepy does this lady detective look? Did you see her eyes in that footage where she's just like, she just looked like, talk about Patsy Ramsey being on downers. This lady found every fucking upper in the
All
goddamn.
the uppers.
Jesus Christ. Like, she looked like she just fucking like snorted an 8-ball.
I don't know why they use that picture.
But the video footage. Like, talk about, she was like, I knew that John Ramsey was a killer. I'm like, I would believe that lady killed JonBenét before John Ramsey.
Oh, and she was talking about how when she was around him, she didn't feel safe.
I mean, I get that. You go into like a spot where and she was the one who ended up handling the body eventually when they found her. So let's talk about the cops getting into the house. Speaking of not Dave Thomas, I'm hungry. Speaking of Steve Thomas, they have these cops, which there was a certain amount of cops that came. But then when they were asked if they needed backup, they're like, no, we're good. We're good. So at one point, 4 people walked past the door containing JonBenét's body. It was like 4 separate people walk past the store and I'm like, yeah, I'm good.
When they initially searched the house.
Yes. So when they initially searched the house, like I said, there were 4 different detectives that went down into the basement, into that train room where this door was located.
And they just walked past the door.
They had noticed that this is where the downstairs windows were located. Okay, so there's 3 emergency windows in this train room, and off of the train room is a room that contains JonBenét's body, which we'll call that the white door room. That's what they called it, is the white door room. So there was a detective who went downstairs, moved things, okay, which one of these things was a suitcase underneath the window. And I mean, I get it. Like, it might not necessarily seem out of place because you have like a 6-year-old child that lives there, a 9-year-old child who lives there. So it's like, I know in my house, literally you come and there are several suitcases just in crazy places because my child likes to play with things like that, you know?
Yeah.
And so they moved this suitcase, and then come to find out now with the documentary, this suitcase had a partial footprint in it.
Yeah.
So it's like they had tampered with the evidence. They had gone past this door. One of the officers literally pulled on the door handle, and he was looking for ways out and thought, oh, nobody can get out this way because there's no window in this room. The door is latched. So just go about my business.
Yeah.
So the fact that like I said, they did not turn over every square inch of that house is just astronomical.
It's almost like they didn't take it seriously.
Right.
Was the other kidnapping attempt that was within the vicinity, was that before or after she went missing?
Where was there a kidnapping? I didn't hear about
There was an attempted kidnapping that was in the same neighborhood.
Oh, right. I did hear about this. It was one of, I think it was somebody that she went to school with. I think it was.
Oh, no, she was in the pageants with.
Right. That's what it was. I think that might have been before. I'm not quite sure on that.
But that
yes.
again,
Right.
if someone's going around targeting, these popular pageant kids and going into their home and things like that.
Right. Well, like I said, I don't think that they were expecting that in that kind of town. I also don't think that they were expecting it so close to Christmas.
Yeah.
But I think this also leads back to the fact that these pageants were not the best idea.
Right.
I'm very glad that they discontinued them to this day because obviously it was somebody who had an attraction to little girls.
Mm-hmm.
And what better way to put a girl on display than to put her in a frilly, skimpy little costume and prance her around on stage? It's almost like you're just like giving them, like, hey, it's like going to a buffet and being like, speaking of Dave Thomas, like extra crispy. And you want the extra crispy, little spicy, the grilled. It's just like you got it all available right there in front of you. And so I think there's a big chance that it was somebody who had watched her. I think it was somebody who was very close to the family. As I said, there was no sign of forced entry. There was no footsteps found. They specifically noted there was no footsteps found in the snow, which here's what is weird. Dave Thomas. I'm terrible with names. Steve Thomas, damn it. Steve Thomas claims that in the morning when he got here, now mind you, this is 5-6 o'clock in the morning, and in Colorado, I've lived in Colorado, in certain parts of Colorado, it will snow very early in the morning or at night, and then
it'll be gone.
It's melted by 6 a.m. So Steve Thomas did state that there was a frosting of snow when he arrived. Okay, and there was nothing in that frosting of snow. Now, later pictures, as we see on the documentary, they don't show any snow at all.
Don't show any snow, no.
But
a frosting, like there's a dusting and then there's a frosting.
Right.
A frosting is just like my windows got cold.
Mm-hmm.
A dusting is you'd see it on the sidewalk.
Right. I think it was just a frosting. So he was more or less looking for indentations in the snow, in which he said that there were no footprint indentations. Now, later, there's a detective, Lou Smith, that comes along. We will get into him as well. And he proves that Steve Thomas, he went and he looked at certain things, noted certain things like the fact that there was a frost with no footprints. He also noticed the grate leading down into the emergency windows and said that the foliage around that was untampered with. Would you really be able to tell?
No, there's no way.
Exactly.
It seems like he went out of his way to make it seem like no one had ever been there.
I feel like he came in with a general opinion with the other detective, the woman detective, and he was they were just like, this is it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
This
and
is
especially
slam
having her in his ear just being like crazy eyes, to nag that on, irritate that. I definitely think that they were just like gung-ho originally going to pin it on them. Recent photo evidence showed that there was no snow. An officer, as I said, did a walkthrough of the basement, pulled on the door, and just kept it moving. So at this point, the family friend that actually, I believe he ended up finding, He ended up finding JonBenét with John. He does a walkthrough of the basement, just kind of trying to make himself busy. He did the same thing as the cop, where he tugged on the door and felt resistance and just decided to keep it moving. Now, at this point, there are people flooding the house: family, friends, police, victim advocates. They are dusting for prints, they're looking for evidence, whatnot. But as they are dusting the counterprints in the kitchen for prints, there's victims advocates moving behind them, cleaning the surfaces with a liquid cleaner, therefore completely sterilizing and, the entire vicinity. Which, again, I feel like this all comes down to the shoddy police work. And I feel like this now is why the Denver PD is trying to, Boulder PD is trying to stop this from being analyzed, because it'll come out just how shitty of police work they did. So at this time, people speculate with the Burke theory that things are very weird with Burke. Burke was never questioned. Burke was never a suspect in the eyes of the police. And they very quickly escorted Burke out of the situation. They claimed that he had been asleep the whole entire time, that he had never woken up through anything, and they just quickly moved him to from the house to a family friend's house, so that way he was completely out of the equation, which I do not blame them for that either. I would obviously want him questioned to see if there was anything that he maybe knew happened in the middle of the night. But after the police were done with that investigation, I would have been like, yeah, let's get my kid out of here. So in this time, they're also naming suspects. Patsy names their house cleaner. Their house cleaner came from a lower income area and had recently asked Patsy for a loan of $2,000. It was close to Christmas time. They had outstanding debts. They actually questioned the kidnapper after this and her husband. We will get into that later. They thought that the housekeeper terribly could not be the suspect, because they figured that the writer of the note was of a higher intelligence based on the words that were used in the note. The deadline for the money was for 10 a.m. and it came and went with no call from the kidnappers. Obviously, they knew that she was already gone at this time. I don't know. You think that they would have still tried to get the money from him? I mean, at this point, so much time has passed and they haven't found their kid yet. That's just wild.
I mean, if I were the kidnapper and you knew that she was already dead, I probably wouldn't call, because if you're playing into the story that contact anyone and I'll kill your daughter, and then you contact people and then I kill your daughter, there's really nothing else to talk about. Yeah. Or if you wrote that letter and you wrote it just to throw them off, then you were never going to call anyway.
Right. This was not declared a crime scene for 4 hours.
How soon was it till he found her?
7 hours.
That's wild.
I agree.
That's wild.
So at this point, because let's stop here, because we'll get here into 1 p.m. They find her body. Mm-hmm. Okay, so at this point, let's recap. We have a ransom note. Mm-hmm. We have a well-medicated Patsy Ramsey. We have John Ramsey getting Burke out of the house, making arrangements to take flights on the personal jet, which, again, the documentary said that was not true. But at that point, it was speculated that John Ramsey is making arrangements for the family to get on a flight to Atlanta, is arranging to get the money, or has already made the arrangements to get the money, and they've gotten Burke out of the house.
He did make the arrangements to get the ransom money?
Yes, he was working on that right away. Huh. So at this point, that's what you have. I don't think I would have initially thought it was the parents with the ransom note. The ransom note is just weird. But that was the route that they went, obviously, where they just pinpointed it on John and Patsy with no question. But I feel like at this point, before finding the body, that would not have been. I feel like all of their moves would have made theoretical sense to me.
Yeah.
So let's get into finding the body. At 1 p.m., this is now 7 hours after Patsy has found this ransom note. This officer, Wiley Eyes, we'll call her Crazy Eyes, suggests to John and their friend, I forget his his name slips his mind, and I didn't write it down. I didn't think that it would be important.
That's how.
But so this officer suggests that John and his friend go search the house to see if anything is amiss in the situation, see if anything's out of place, see if they can find any other evidence, and really just to keep John Ramsey busy, because I feel like at this point he is very like checking off boxes, you know? And they said that Patsy and John were very separate in the whole situation, where Patsy was in the living room, John was in the kitchen or whatever. And Patsy's hysterical. John is down to business. Like, and so people claim like, well, why wouldn't they come together? But if you were with a bitch for that long and you knew how she was, and you knew that like, okay, I have to be this one who is like in control of the situation. Plus, not to mention when you get into situations like that, your adrenaline, your fight or fight kicks in, where it's like, I've been in situations literally where it's been life or death, and you just are just like, oh, like you're so calm in those situations. And then afterwards you look back and you're like, what the fuck? Like, why did I not go nuts? Like, why was I just like, let's call 911 now? You know what I mean? That's all normal responses. I wouldn't think anything was amiss or out of bounds, out of, you know, with that situation. So the officer told John to search the house from top to bottom. So he starts, again, this is criticized, at the bottom first, directly where the body is. But that, in his defense, is literally the far most corner of their house, where if you were going to go from bottom up, which they had already checked her bedroom on the top floor. Their bedroom was the tippy top of the house. Then it was JonBenét. So they knew if she wasn't in their bedroom, they knew she wasn't in her bedroom. I would probably do the same. Where are you most likely to put a body? Hide something in the basement. So I would probably do the same, go to the very bottommost half of the basement.
Right.
Okay, so they do this. They notice these 3 emergency windows. At this point, apparently, John points out that he had broken the window the previous year because he had locked himself out of the house, and he had physically gotten in this way. So John Ramsey is admitting, this grate has to be lifted up. You slide down, and there's 3 emergency windows. John Ramsey admitted that he broke that himself, having to break into the house. He had locked himself out the previous year and had never got it fixed. So initially, John is saying this is possible. This is a possible entry to the house. And as they're walking past these windows on the way to find her body, he's saying this. And now, mind you, there's a suitcase that apparently got moved, but there's pictures of it originally in the new documentary. There are pictures of it. Did they place it? Did they stage it? Because they said that the note was moved and then placed back on the stair where it was found and then photographed. So was this suitcase here originally? Somebody had moved it and then put it back. That's all possible to cover their tracks. So they're walking past these windows and whatnot. There's a white latch door. At this point, like I said, it's been passed over 4 different times. 2 different men have had their hands on it, pulled on it, just whatever, walked away, and her body and everything is missing for 7 hours. John immediately opens this door and then finds her body. Now,
were people around when he found the body?
Yes. So there was one detective that went down, found resistance on the door, and passed by. He was with his friend. Again, I forgot his name. He was with his friend when they discovered the body. So apparently this friend, as I brought up before, had searched this room before. And Steve Thomas's, Thompson, whatever, he had claimed in his book that this man had opened the door, could not find the light switch to the room that JonBenét's body was in, and closed the door and went back upstairs. So at this point, possibly 2 different people. One was in this room, or had a complete access to this room. The other one tugged on the door. So So finally, John goes down to this bedroom, pulls it open, to the room, pulls open the door, turns on the light, and there is her body after 7 hours. So at this point, she's in a state of decomposition.
And was there more than one person who was with him when he found her?
No, it was just his one friend, and so supposedly...
Did they to give it like his initial reaction?
Yes. So supposedly they saw the body. They both rushed over to it. The friend touched her ankle and felt that it was cold and just bolted upstairs and was like immediately, fuck that, and just bolted upstairs. Now, John grabs the body by the waist. I did not know any of this. This is all in the book. John grabs the body by the waist. JonBenét is positioned in a way where her face was exposed and her torso was covered with a white blanket. Over her mouth was duct tape, black duct tape, and her hands were over her head like this. So he grabs her little body by the waist, and imagine being in this scenario, because it makes me sick to even talk about this right now. He grabs her little body by the waist and just carries her upstairs. And
Still tied up?
yeah, at this point, it's his initial reaction. He sees her face covered by duct tape. She has nylon cord around her neck. We'll get into that. And around her wrists. And he just grabs her. I probably would have done the same thing. No regard to the fact that I would have either opened the door, knew exactly what that was, vomited and ran away, or I would have grabbed the body and done the exact same thing, thinking possibly he could get medical help. So that's exactly what he does. He does, grabs this body, carries it upstairs, and puts it down on the hallway floor. So at this point, Crazy Eyes sees the body, which she reacts, I feel, on par as well, where he just puts his body down and is just horrified. So this cop's first initial instinct is to lift the body and put it on the couch. Now, this is all regarded as shitty police work, but in the human scheme of things, I don't feel like these are unreasonable reactions.
The reactions aren't unreasonable, but the thoroughness is unreasonable.
Yes.
They just weren't very, like, yeah, I mean, if he sees the body first, he's going to react in a way that's not going to preserve the crime scene. Had the police have done their job better,
Yes,
and have been
absolutely.
down there, and if they found the body, they would say, okay, stop everything.
Yep.
Don't touch nothing.
Yep.
Let's just... Yeah, but they weren't the first ones to find her.
Exactly.
He was, so there was an emotional reaction, and then there was somebody else who might have also had an emotional reaction, but at the same time, they're in a situation and predicament that they shouldn't even be in the first place.
Exactly. I think everybody had completely understandable human reactions to it. And again, it was not pronounced a crime scene for 4 hours. Now, traditional police work, they should have made it a crime scene immediately. They should have gotten everybody out there, everybody questioned in a police vicinity, and then they should have thoroughly searched that from top to bottom, and they did not.
Yeah.
So how could you even be mad at, and point the finger at John for lifting the body when that is his child? And I would have done exactly the same. Now, after this, let's talk about JonBenét's body. So she is found with her arms, her hands over her head. She has duct tape on her mouth. Her wrists and her neck are bound with cord. Now, here is the thing that sticks out to me, which I'm going to ask you. I have asked two older gentlemen in their 60s, is this common knowledge? She was found with what is called a garrote.
No.
Around her neck.
No, my generation, we don't know what the fuck that is.
That's what I'm saying. That was my initial instinct. When I first read the book, I was like, a garrote.
My first time hearing that word is when I saw the doc.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so the way that it was done, to my understanding, and again, from Steve's book, my first initial thought in reading this was, and Steve pointed out, and also Wikipedia have both pointed out, that a garrote is something that was originally taught to elite military, okay, where this is special forces training in how to do this in order to, it's capital punishment, to slowly torture somebody, to strangle them, to get information out of them, or in perhaps an ex-military pedophile's mind, a good way to erotically asphyxiate a child.
Does her dad have military background?
Yes, he does.
Oh.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So this is a big theory of mine, and I kind of wanted to wait to sum this up, but this is the point for me. Okay. Now again, going back to the ransom note, it being a foreign faction. If there were two men sent into the house to retrieve the body that were foreign military, and it went wrong, that would make sense to me. Um, Now, John Ramsey was in the Navy. So here's my thing. Like I said, this garrote is what sticks out to me. This, via Steve's book and also Wikipedia, this is military training. You kind of have to have a know-how of how to do this. Now, there are a bunch of different ways to do this where technically if you have a rope or something and you strangle somebody like this, that is a garrote. But this way was, to my knowledge, a turnkey style to do it very slowly. Okay, that sticks out to me. John Ramsey was in the Navy. They had really nothing besides friends, co-workers, that they were associating with at this point, people involved in the pageantry life. Now, hypothetically speaking, would it be possible for John Ramsey to have an ex-military friend that he may have known in the military, who may have lived near them, who may have been in the house numerous times, known about the pageantry, known about John's bonus for the year before? That is my thinking of the possible prime suspects. Somebody who
Do they have someone that fits that description?
no, and there's apparently just hundreds of people that were interviewed, thousands of suspects. Like I said, the first suspect is the housekeeper. That is who Patsy Ramsey initially named. She was the housekeeper, married, like I said, very low income. They had actually interviewed her and her husband. Her husband was rumored to be drunk during the initial interview, and he also made very weird comments about how they were talking about how JonBenét was so pretty and well known, and how they were worried that she was going to get kidnapped. The husband had made a comment saying, "Oh, did somebody finally strangle that kid or something like that?" When he was,
And there, he's American.
I don't believe so.
Okay, so it kind of takes out him leaving the ransom note, because the ransom note was very sophisticated. And
Right, and that's
if
what
English isn't your first language, then it wouldn't have been that sophisticated.
I'm not sure if they weren't American, but I know that they were deemed to be lower class, where they didn't think that they would have had the know-how to write that note. Now, there are a couple different other main characters in this that we will get to, but I want to discuss the autopsy. They found out later on that she had a broken skull and the garrote around her neck. So the initial, it's ruled a homicide. The initial thing that they said killed her was the blow to the head. Okay, which they also said matches the shape of a baton or a flashlight. And then she was asphyxiated, which is via the garrote. They also found that the garrote was made out of one of Patsy Ramsey's paintbrushes, a big wooden Bob Ross style paintbrush that was located nearby. And JonBenét was sexually assaulted with it as well. And then she was wiped clean. Yeah. So there were no traditional signs of rape with her body. So yes, her official cause of death was asphyxia by strangulation associated with cranial cerebral trauma, which is a broken skull. Her death was ruled a homicide. Now, after they got her on the couch, they also botched up her personal DNA on her body, things like that. They covered her up with blankets, sweaters, things of that nature. They covered her feet up. They covered her face. Again, all natural parts of human grieving. I would also probably do the same.
But if you're forensics, you're like, fuck.
Yes, exactly. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. Now, at this time, 6% of child murders are committed by strangers. 54% are committed by parents. So this is what their initial thought of it being the Ramseys. The Ramseys themselves, they offered $100,000 reward for any information whatsoever on the death of JonBenét. And so then this is another part where things get sketchy. Like I said, they had found the body at this point, and so then Patsy and John just start to batten the hatches. John goes into what I believe is crisis mode, where they're like, listen, our daughter's dead. I don't have any other business here. It wasn't me. It wasn't my husband. It wasn't my child. So they make arrangements. They leave the house after they find the body. There's nobody left in the house except for police and JonBenét after they had left. Now, this is widely criticized. Why are they dipping? Why are they running? But as far as I'm concerned, if my child was found dead in my house, like, I'd be like, nope.
No, I guess you gotta stay in the house.
Yeah. They should have taken them to the police department for questioning, but they didn't. They allowed them to just go.
Yeah.
So, but again, this comes down on Patsy and John, where people are like, well, why are you doing this? Why are you leaving?
What else
why
do
are
you do?
dipping? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Well, how are you questioning any moves that they made when every move that they make, in my opinion, is par for the course? And then we get into Patsy is naming the housekeeper as a suspect. Other suspects in this situation here are a family friend who was known to portray Santa, and he had a very close relationship with JonBenét and had seen her the year before. Now, his DNA did not match. Okay, but this, again, hypothetically speaking, let's say this guy was the killer. This is totally plausible to me, because if it was, again, a family friend that knew JonBenét very closely, a very close, trusted family friend of JonBenét who knew everything about her, everything about the family. Like I said, it's on.
You play Santa too. You're, pandering to kids.
Yes, exactly. And not only that, but he had seen her the night before. Now, if it was somebody along those lines, it would make sense to me that they were at this party. They knew, okay, hey, I'm going to leave. Bye. And then the Ramseys stay. Is that not a good opportunity to sneak into their house when you know the way around? So that something like that would check out to me. Again, a friend that has military experience, a friend that has experience with a family, knows their monetary situation, knows the pageantry situation, knows the layout of the house, knows when they are and are not there, because as we see, they speculate that this killer was in the house for quite a while.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that would check out to me. Another prime suspect in the case, Gary Olivia. This man is a registered sex offender in the area. When around the time that JonBenét was killed, there was a report filed against him to the police, a tip given to the police about him, because he had called this friend who reported him saying, I heard a little girl. So the friend gets word of him saying this, knows that he has a problem with children, you know what I mean, reports him to the police. They go search Gary Olivia's tent, and they find pictures of JonBenét. So this is either days after her murder, but I don't think it was pictures of her from the recent newspapers. I think it was previously taken pictures, which she did have a professional photographer, which he was a suspect as well, because he had a creepy history. So not only is there of this,
but DNA didn't match on either one of them.
But there's so much DNA all over everything, where I think it's rumored that there was like 6 types of DNA.
And it was a lot of DNA that they couldn't identify.
Yes, exactly. So not only that, Gary Olivia, he has this proof or these pictures of JonBenét. He admits he has a fixation on her. And he admits that he will take the fall. He will take the rap for this crime if they promise him 3 square meals a day and a roof over his head,
Mm-hmm.
which goes back to the state of America. Why is America in this type of situation, period, where a man is homeless in a tent, and when the cops come and question him for a child murder, he is in such a bad state that he's like, I'll take 3 square.
Yep.
You know, I mean, that's just crazy to begin with, but his DNA did not match. Now, there is two more actually main players in this. There was a man called Michael Helgath. He was a local electrician, also somebody who could be in and out of the house. You know, that he came and fixed blah, 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 whatever the other day. Could have been in and out of the house. He is a local electrician who owned boots that matched the partial print found at the crime scene on the suitcase. He also owned a stun gun, but his DNA did not match. He killed himself in 1997. Right. On top of this, there is John Mark Carr. Now, John Mark Carr, he big time wanted, and he is featured heavily in the documentary.
Yeah.
He big time.
It's funny. I don't think they mentioned the one who killed himself.
Yeah, I don't know.
Which, I mean, motive to kill yourself, that would
Sponsor me.
motive to kill yourself, it would definitely be there.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if you've done this thing and you can't live with it, it seemed like, especially once they got to the point where they realized that everything needs to be retested, all the evidence needs to be retested for DNA, then you got to go back and look at that guy.
Yeah.
Look at all of them, really.
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely. This biggest one that blows my mind, again, these people that want to take the fall for these major crimes, it's just like you really want to get your 15 minutes of fame, you know, because this guy was in Taiwan.
Yes.
When they found him, which is just wild. But again, he was in Atlanta when JonBenét was born. Mm-hmm. Now, they only stayed there for a year. But again, this is a very prominent family, very rich family. John Ramsey is very well known, and Patsy Ramsey is very well known. So he was in the same area. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Calls and takes the fall for this whole entire thing. Now, what the documentary really doesn't tell you is that all of his detail he gave was vague. Very vague, nothing specific, just run of the mill, like, yeah, I did it. You know what I mean? With no distinct...
outside of the story that he told.
Yes. With no distinct... there was no evidence or DNA or anything that would link him to the crime, and he was eventually dismissed. Mm. So we have... And again, these are just the prime suspects in this case. This is not like the hundreds of people that they interviewed or that over the last 30 years, you know, that they've really just looked into. Like I said, there are 6 items left over for this case, one being the panties, one being the rope, one being the garrote. And now John is pushing for the testing of these. And I feel like Boulder PD is really dragging their feet because it would expose just all this stuff, you know, and who's to say that this killer is even still alive? Like, wouldn't it be a bitch if they just fucking tested all this shit now and it really was like one of the homies? Yeah. Like, what if it's somebody he's still fucking friends with nowadays that's just like, what up?
Yep.
And then I mean, it very well could be. That is the thing that I like about cases like this, where there's no answer. I'm not going to give you a definitive answer. It's still a cold case. I couldn't tell you really one way or another because for a week now, I've just been balls deep in this. Mm-hmm. And just, you know, none of it makes sense.
None of it is convincing outside of the guy who told that story. And he told the way that he told it and how he gave an explanation for the ransom letter.
Yeah.
You know, his story did, like, at least coming from him, it checked out. But, I mean, the fact that there was no DNA, then it just threw it out of the window. But then again, the DNA is kind of fucked up.
I agree. And I think
so you don't even know.
I think it also, again, makes perfect sense that it was somebody who was in the area where John and Patsy were when JonBenét is born. They have this beautiful daughter, blue-eyed, blonde-haired. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? very much raised in these social circles that are very wealthy. There's no reason why he couldn't have tracked her, kept an eye on her. It would have made total sense for him to track her all those years, and then, kill her and then flee to Taiwan. Yeah, you're never going to think anybody is going to find you in
He was
Taiwan.
cocky about it too.
And they didn't.
He's like, the number that I'm giving you leads to nowhere.
Right.
Like, you'll never find me.
Right, and exactly. And then that also checks out with him having a very romantic relationship with her. If he was a mentally disturbed, which obviously he is one way or another, a mentally disturbed person, he's going to romanticize this relationship with a child regardless, but with her, again, it's all very possible. Patsy was speculated to have killed JonBenét in a fit of rage over bedwetting. Now, as we see the documentary, it shows that there's no evidence of bedwetting. The bed was not wet, but had that many hours passed, it would have dried. So, they did test the bed. Did they see that? Did they say that they had found any sign of bedwetting?
No, they did.
Right. So this is something that Steve Thomas says where it was quoted, these are through his interviews and things that he had gathered. So who knows what truth there is to this. But supposedly he had interviewed somebody who claimed, and their housekeeper, she was one of the ones who said that JonBenét, maybe it was her exactly, who said that JonBenét had this bedwetting problem, and it even led to having, problems with like pooping the bed. And I read this today in Steve Thomas's book where that housekeeper did state that 6 months into her occupancy there, JonBenét regressed and started having these bad bedwetting problems where, she would start at 6 o'clock in the morning, and it was reported that Patsy was already up, like washing linens and stuff. So it is a very real possibility that, JonBenét wet the bed. Patsy woke up in a fit of rage. That all checks out, especially if there's alcohol and shit involved in the equation, with things like antidepressants, antipsychotics,
or cancer medication,
Valium, whatever it may be. If there's alcohol in the equation, that absolutely exemplifies, what I mean? Situations like this, we see it every day, time and time again, where it is a very real possibility she could have killed JonBenét in a fit of rage. But then again, stun gun marks.
Well, and then also how she was tied up.
Right. You would have to do all that as a parent.
If something happened where she hit her up across the head and, just to throw people off the sound at
How was all this not determined? And there was never any time of death ever put out to the public. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, shouldn't they have? They
established that
they did an autopsy on her. Why were they not able to determine her time of death, the initial cause of death? Like, all this is just very like, well, best of, like, they'd pin a $20 bill to everybody's fucking collar, like, best of luck. Burke Ramsey claims that they were never spanked, that they were raised in a totally traditional, beautiful, loving household. All the evidence points as such. But then again, you judge a book by its cover. You never know what's going on behind closed doors.
Yeah.
So the police pushed hard for a conviction of John and Patsy Ramsey. Now we get into the grand trial, which I understand why they did it, holding that grand trial to try and push a conviction. But it just shows you, again, back to the media manipulation. They pushed all this like crazy narrative. She was all over the tabloids next to the fucking Bat Boy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember personally seeing it growing up on the Enquirer.
Yep.
You saw two things. You saw Bat Boy and you saw JonBenét Ramsey.
Yep.
Every single week without fail. You didn't see anything else.
Right. How weird that we were talking about Travis Scott last week, and he had his Bat Boy almost as if maybe we were meant to do this.
Yeah.
Oh,
Bat Boy is the connector in all of our episodes.
Bat Boy, which connects us back to our next subject, Mothman.
Exactly. Wild.
Yes, so this is clear-cut media manipulation. They just pushed it. They wanted somebody to blame. They formed this grand jury, and they were allowed to study this case for over a year, including trapezing through the Ramsey house.
Yeah.
Like just going, mulling about the house, the evidence, whatnot. I wonder how long that was before they got access to that house. Because I'm pretty sure by that time, Patsy and John were like long gone.
Yeah.
I think that they had already had her buried. Also, if you live near her cemetery, because she is out there, JonBenét, she is actually buried there. You can have, I believe it's in Michigan. That might be something to see. Actually, while I'm here, if anybody out there is spookily inclined, I think that it may be worth, if we go really down this rabbit hole, perhaps we could go.
Wait,
should we make a trip out of it? Ooh, are there any mediums out there, like full blown mediums, like people, you know what I mean? Like a little bit of Ouija board action, a little pendulum swinging, if you will.
You said she's buried in Michigan?
I believe she is buried in Michigan.
From Atlanta to Michigan, yeah?
Maybe it is Georgia. Let me check.
Oh no, I'm pretty sure she was buried in
Georgia.
Yeah,
Atlanta. That would make sense more. But I know that they had Michigan and Georgia's kind of a far drive from here.
Maybe they had like a vigil or something in Michigan. I remember people were like all over the place.
Yeah, if somebody lives out in Georgia and wants to send us a picture, or perhaps any spooky bitches out there, if they want to go out to her grave, maybe do a little seance. That's terrible. I shouldn't be encouraging that. But if you can communicate with her, that'd be interesting, and we definitely would be interested to hear back from Miss Ramsey. Wouldn't it be the craziest shit in the world if we solved the murder? Then we'll definitely get Shaq on the show.
Yeah, I mean, if we pull that shit off,
I know. I mean,
if we were the people that did it, good old Panle After Dark, solving mysteries. 30 years they couldn't figure it out, but we pulled it off in one episode.
One episode, all because we suggested contacting the ghost of JonBenét Ramsey.
That's crazy.
It could be possible. Stop it! I'm trying to get a sponsorship here.
Oh, no. It's just funny to me how many people wanted to take credit for it.
I know, but that's, again, not weird. Again, back to our original purpose, which will be the purpose of all of our podcasts, that people are very crazy and weird.
Yeah, they romanticize this type of shit.
Yeah, who knows what's going on in people's brains? I don't know. So speaking of people's brains, this mock jury, they found Patsy Ramsey very guilty. And this evidence didn't come out. This did not become public knowledge for I want to say 10 years, that they did not announce that they had found Patsy Ramsey guilty. This was very hush-hush, this grand jury. They were trying to push this to get this verdict of guilty for Patsy Ramsey. They did find her guilty of child endangerment, which I feel is fair. You know what I'm saying?
You pretty much gave someone access to your home.
Absolutely.
To do this heinous thing. Maybe it wasn't you, but because of your negligence.
Yes. But again,
So wait, why wasn't she indicted, though?
She was not indicted because the judge decided that they could not find evidence beyond a reasonable cause.
Oh, okay, so the judge pretty much overruled the jury.
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
Okay,
They could not find evidence of it being without a reasonable doubt of her doing it. So he overturned it. And then, like I said, after that, there's been multiple times that the Ramseys had been pardoned by multiple people, and it's just gone completely unknown, uncared for by the media. You would think that, and I'm sure that they have, and we're just so brainwashed in this, Patsy and John did it, that we won't see anything else. But yeah, this has come out time and time again over years that they were in no way, shape, or form guilty. They did a mock trial on Geraldo Rivera. Let's talk about Mr. Geraldo Rivera, since we're talking about gremlins.
Talk about a trip down memory lane, man.
Talk about...
They took so many liberties, and in doing so, they almost made a mockery out of the situation, but they also exaggerated a lot of the details to paint the story that they wanted to paint.
The media manipulation, even from Geraldo.
Yeah.
The audacity, Geraldo.
And they paid for it.
And the funny part is, according to Patsy Ramsey, she had come home one day and just plopped down on the couch and turned on the TV. And then she turned on Geraldo Rivera, and they were holding this mock trial. Now, speaking of audacity, I'm just going to say this. This is the one of the top most disgusting things about this whole entire situation, I believe, is what happened on Geraldo Rivera. Geraldo had interviewed a woman who claimed that she had spent 23 hours watching footage of JonBenét. Now, she claims watching this one piece of footage, JonBenét is playing a saxophone. And she claims
a Christmas performance.
Yes. She claims that JonBenét was masturbating with said saxophone. And I obviously on the documentary they have showed this footage. I just think that is absolutely egregious.
Yeah.
Like the fact that she would claim that when it doesn't come anywhere near her body.
No, and it looks like she's literally just dancing with a saxophone the way that you would dance with a saxophone.
Yes.
Because a saxophone is a very weird structure that you have to hold in front of your body, and you can't do a whole lot of movement. It's going to go one way.
Right.
And to sexualize those type of movements when those are literally just regular band movements is pretty fucked up for her to do.
The fact that
paint that picture as well.
Yes, the fact that woman would even suggest that is horrifying.
Yeah.
The fact that Geraldo wasn't like, bitch, what the fuck? Like, horrifying.
And he was like, nah, take it there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like, and I mean, I get it. You're pushing it for views, but then the real audacity is just the fact that he interviewed John Ramsey like 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And he
And
said,
then shit on him.
he said he would not apologize for what happened, but he would apologize for what John went through. Well, at least you bless your heart for giving him that. I'm not going to apologize that I accused your daughter of masturbating with a saxophone on live TV 30 years ago, but I will apologize for the horrifying situation you have been through, which, Mr. Rivera, you didn't help.
Not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all.
The audacity. You know who'd never do that? Shaq.
You wild.
Yeah. So as you would, Patsy sees this and she's just medicated for days.
And not only that, but when they do finally talk to the public, you can tell she's heavily medicated.
Oh, absolutely. Like,
not that she's like doing it recreationally, but she's in remission.
No. Yeah, not only that, but that's completely understandable. Like, I would rather have Patsy Ramsey medicated to the point of like slothness than have her absolutely in a manic shit fit of an episode over her daughter. And I'm sure John Ramsey preferred it that way as well.
Yeah.
You know, because I mean, if this was me, I would have gone healthcare killer.
Yeah.
I would have been like, hello, Mr. Rivera. I shouldn't say that. That's terrible. But
well, I mean, at the end of the day, they did pay for it. They paid. The Ramsey sued and they settled for an undisclosed number. Same thing that happened when the media decided to turn on Bo again.
Oh yeah.
And I can't remember. I can't remember what establishment, put that out there and ran with it super hard. But
CBS, it was a CBS special where a journalist accused Burke.
Oh, not Bo, but Burke.
Yeah, that's a cute little nickname for him. It's fine. I let it slide. But a journalist accused Burke. And then it was on CBS. So Burke sued CBS and this journalist for about a total of $750 million.
Yeah.
And it was not given. That $750 million was not, but
they did settle.
They settled on an amount that made all parties involved very satisfied. So yeah, they're set for the rest of their lives. But then again, it's like, I mean,
this sucked.
Are you really?
This sucked. Like to go through. Like fuck I lost my older sister, and then immediately after my other sister, it was brutally murdered.
Yep.
And No one knows who did it. They never found out who did it. And on top of that, it was just a national,
How
a
do you
national
even-
headline for 20 years.
How do you live a normal life as Burke Ramsey? Like, I hope.
I'm sure you can. I'm sure you can. Like these days, you can go somewhere and name Burke Ramsey, and no one would think anything about it today. But if it's like maybe up until 20, I would say up until 2010,
Yeah.
it was a thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You were seeing that the image of JonBenét and who did it. You were seeing that for 10 years straight,
Right. And
relentlessly.
if I was Burke, I'd be like, Mom, Dad, please send me out to Switzerland.
Yeah.
To that boarding school.
Yeah.
And hope that nobody in the Swiss Alps has an Enquirer magazine.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, granted, Ramsey is such a, you could change. You could be like, my name's Steve.
Yeah.
And you would be fine. But
He's got all the money, so
but
still,
yeah.
it would suck to
I know
live real life like that.
Right, and that's such a problem is that people relate money to happiness, but it's like, look at this situation. Like, you have all the money in the world, but it's like, I'm sure Patsy Ramsey did not die a happy woman.
I mean, I'm pretty sure she would give it all up to get her kid back.
Absolutely, and I believe that as well. I mean, she took her confession or her lack of confession to her deathbed, where they literally interviewed her on her deathbed to say, hey, you can say you did this because you're dying. And she took it to her grave that she was not guilty, and you have nothing to lose at that point. It would have been
crazy they even asked.
Of course they asked. And it's like, if you had done it, wouldn't you have admitted it? I mean, unless it did come down to it being Burke or John, maybe she wouldn't. But if it was her, I mean, therefore, I don't know. Again, this is my my quote for my podcast is, I don't know.
Yeah,
Sure. Just a lot of shit. And this poor Lou Smith, he's a detective who came out of not hiding, but retirement to work on this case. And that poor man, I feel like was just spot on about mostly everything and just completely like laughed out, like just disregarded. Like, he eventually came to the point of just like such like utter defeat that he's like, I'm done. But he still continued to work on that case until he died. Yeah. Like him and Steve Thomas, they were done. I'm going to stop. Is KFC still open?
No.
They were pretty much done around the same time. Like, they were both just like on different ends, where it was like Dave was like, fuck Steve. Steve was like, the Ramseys did it, and
the other detective,
Lou, he was so adamant that they didn't do it, and they both just kind of, I feel like, threw in the flag and walked away,
At least secularly.
Yeah, and Lou is gone now.
His kids picked up the case.
Yeah, but I feel like he proved, obviously, like, and John proved that you can get into that grate that was on the side. You would never know if that foliage was disturbed. You would never know if there were.
And her bedroom window was right above it, right?
I'm not sure where the location of her bedroom window
that's
is.
what they said about her bed. You could climb in her bedroom window.
Oh,
and get out of her bedroom window. And then just climb right into that grate. I think it was like bedroom window, and then they pull that up, and then down you go.
Yeah, I mean, I did not know that, but who knows? It just wouldn't shock me. And most of Lou Smith's findings, like, Lou Smith pretty much like proved that Patsy and John did not do it, and it was just like the media that pushed so hard to just have them be the fall guy, and like I said, everything as far as I'm concerned checks out for them, how they did things and whatnot, how they went about things, how they felt. Like, I don't think that John Ramsey would be on TV 30 years later trying to push the evidence being tested. Like, John is like, this is fucking sophisticated. It's 2024. Test this shit. Like, I don't think he would be going that hard if he did it.
No. He wouldn't. He'd be like, "Oh, case closed."
Yeah, right. I don't think that he would be going that hard if Burke was, guilty, or Patsy. I think that if Patsy did it personally, she would have taken the fall and been like,
and would have told him at least.
Yeah. So lot to this case. All the Ramseys have been cleared via DNA findings.
And then the DNA is apparently useless, and they should probably just retest everything.
Yeah. And I really, that's the end of my notes, all 7 pages of them. Goddamn. But I really hope that they do solve this case. I think that, again, I like to think on the positive side of things. I'm a glass is half full. If it isn't half full, how the fuck can I fill it type of person? So I really like to take a step back from all these scenarios and really think of like, okay, what did we learn from this? Because I think that we learned, child pageants are not great. Not great. You should not sexualize a child. A child should not be in a little fucking frou-frou dress pranced in front of men, because that was a big thing. I also read that people said how they noted, like people in the pageant circuit with JonBenét had pointed out, like, there are men here that don't come because they have a child or know a child.
Yeah, they're not there rooting for a child.
Right. And if you're going to allow that type of world to exist, have some kind of, but again, how do you check? How would you check at the door? Hey, let me see your ID.
Yeah, who are you here to see?
Yeah.
Yeah. Point them out, show them to me.
You couldn't. Yeah. And it's like you can't just sit there and profile somebody to be like, you're a man. Who do you belong to? Yeah. You know what I mean? You can't do that. It's public. It's legal. So how do you? I think that's a huge lesson that we learned in that. Let kids be kids. Let them go outside. Like, don't push them to wear makeup. This goes back to like this whole thing. Like, I am not saying in any way, shape, or form, like somebody like Danny Masterson, for example. I was talking about him today with everything he's got going on. I don't think that that's right. But when you push these children to look like women and they are not women, like, this is a problem. You know what I mean? You cannot. When I was, let's just say 2024 now, let's say you take your average 15-year-old in 2024 and you look at them on the internet, you cannot tell the difference between a 15-year-old on Instagram and a 25-year-old model. Yeah. You know what I mean? And especially when I was 15, I wore like Thrasher shirts. I had Blink-182 shirts.
It was definitely a bigger a bigger space between adults and children.
Yes.
And back then, I mean, people say it all the time, like, man, adults look so old.
Yes,
back then.
I know.
But now, it's more common to see people in their 30s, 40s, 50s looking younger, dressing younger, acting younger, doing, if you see a 30-year-old on a skateboard, you don't think anything of it.
Right. Shout out to Tony Hawk.
Yeah, if you just don't. And back when we were younger, a 30-year-old, would be a guy with a weird mustache and he's got a bald spot in the middle of his head.
He would look like Tom Green.
Yeah. And so it's different. So, it's hard to decipher who's who in today's world, and back then it was just so much different.
Right. And nowadays who's who it doesn't even matter, because who do you want to be is really the main theme of everything.
Yeah.
So I think this definitely taught us that, like, man, let your kids be kids. Don't give your kid goddamn MAC lipstick when they're 12, 13 years old. Yeah. Let them wear friggin', and granted, kids are going to be quick kids. We've seen the movie 13, that is how it is. But, let your kids be kids, man. Watch over your babies, too. That's a big thing, dude. Like, this could just happen to anybody in the blink of an eye, and let's be better with our police work.
And it also, they reached out to the Boulder police and gave them the roadmap on how to get into those forensics, retest everything. They've been made aware of those avenues, and it's just up to them now to actually do it. It sounds like they don't want to.
Right. That's what but then again, like I said, if they were to release all this, it would just be like, well, what the fuck have you been sitting on for 30 years?
Yeah.
And why wasn't this done to begin with? I think that there is no one right in this situation. I think that everybody was a dumbass. And poor JonBenét, she's a real victim. But like I said, trying to see the positive in it. Let's take better care of our children. Keep them close. Do not expose them to things that they shouldn't be exposed to, like child pageantry and friggin' massive festivals.
Jeez.
Let's do that as well.
Let's do a better job as people to just keep our kids off of like socials and stuff.
I know.
I don't put pictures. I don't post pictures of my kid.
I know. I hit all that.
Which sometimes I do, but like not very often.
Right.
Maybe like once a year, just so my family members can keep up and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's just people are weird out there. It's just, I mean, at one point our lives were actually private, and now they're they're not,
now
so.
it's like, look at, we're in front of 3 friggin' cameras to make our lives purposely
Right.
private. And I really think that every generation says they're like, things would be better if they went back to how they were before.
Yeah.
Would they?
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure we would have found her by now if they would have had modern technology.
That is very true. We have come a long way. I think that's all thanks to the aliens.
I see what you did there.
I'm trying to tie up all my loose
I see what you
ends.
did there.
Speaking of which, Mothman. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
What else? What other kind of sound effects we got over there?
We got a lot. The people on YouTube can't hear it, but so we got quite a bit.
All right, and they can't hear that?
Not the people on YouTube, but they will on the actual.
Oh, okay. I was going to say.
Once we edit it down, they can hear everything.
Oh, okay, good. Because it was like they're just sitting there listening to us. Nice. Yeah.
They're like, what the fuck you guys listening to?
Yeah, what the fuck? Why haven't you been using those all the time?
Just because there's like 6 pages, and you gotta know what's where. And
oh my God.
Yeah, so if I haven't had it memorized yet, it would just like hit this button for air. The only one I really know is the air horn. That's the only one I use is this one right here. Yeah, because it's just right there at the tip. Well, so
now I'm on the show, so now you have to use a womp, womp,
yeah.
womp.
I know that's right there.
There you go. Perfect.
Yeah.
Look at us. The panel network is just making big moves.
Yeah,
big moves. I'm gonna learn all those buttons before Shaq comes on.
Yeah, I need somebody to learn all this stuff. It's a lot.
Do we have anything else we want to cover? So I think our next week is going to be the Chicagoland Mothman problem, like I said. And then, we might cover some Christmas spooky stuff. Some little, I'm afraid to leave and go outside right now because of the Mothman.
Yeah. Such a weird thing to be your thing that happens in your area. We got hot dogs and we got White Sox and there's the Mothman.
Yeah.
And then, we got the Cubs and I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
Wait.
Welcome to Chicago.
Yeah, you can go to the lake and everything and Mothman might be there, but don't worry about that.
Ooh, Mothman on the beach. That sounds like a calendar I would probably buy off of.
That is wild. Mothman on the beach.
I literally got on this Mothman kick because unsolved mysteries, but B, I was searching for a calendar because I'm like, fuck, I gotta write all this shit down and remember when we're recording and whatnot, and I stumbled upon a cryptid calendar, and it is a cryptid and folklore calendar. And do you think I bought it?
I know you bought it.
Yeah, of course I did.
Hell yeah, I bought it.
It was between that and the Rax calendar.
The Rax?
All boobs.
There's that. Yeah.
There was also the Australian firefighters with kittens. It was a tough call.
That sounds like it. Decisions.
I went with the cryptids only because I figured, well, every month I've got a new topic.
Yeah.
So
at least one.
You know what? I'm an August. I'm a Leo. I feel like we're the most like, oh, don't hate me, loud and proud, like of the months, and we got a very lame cryptid on my month. It's like shadow people, and I'm like, they started off strong. January Bigfoot, December Jersey Devil.
Yeah, he was like, oh, okay, I see what we did here.
Yeah, but mine lame. Like you would think, August is like everybody's loud, they're proud, they're flashy, they're like, it's like we're like Leos are like Freddie Mercury.
When does Leo start?
August. I think actually JonBenét might have been a Leo. It's until the 24th.
So the first of the 24th?
I don't know. We maybe
because that would make my brother a Leo. He's August 9th.
Oh, that's that's a Leo. I'm a hardcore Leo. I'm right in the
that
middle.
makes
I'm
more
August
sense.
13th.
Yeah,
I was
my
born
brother's.
on Friday the 13th.
You were born Friday the 13th?
No, it was a Sunday. I make a good wife.
Nah, and then my other boy, Preem, shout out Preem, he was born, or he's a Leo as well.
Leos are legit. Like I said,
I'm a Libra, so we get along.
Oh, that is a good match. Yeah. Hey, if you know more about astrology and want to get on the show, because I know more stuff about like ghosts
Yeah.
and creepy stuff. Which, speaking of which, if you have watched this far, bless your heart. But if you're a ghost hunter in the area, if you are a medium in the area, if you are a cryptozoology, which is what I wanted to be when I was a child.
Really?
Yes, I wanted to be a cryptozoologist or Stephen King.
Wow.
That sums me up.
I was also lofty goals.
I was born on the same day as Alfred Hitchcock. Does that not just make sense?
Yeah, it does.
It checks out for me. It checks out for me.
That's about right.
But if you are also a spooky bitch or warlock, I'm not trying to be sexist. You can be spooky no matter what gender. You don't even have to have a gender. If you are a spooky they and them, please call in, text us, and I want to hear from you. I want you sitting here so I can ask you about what do you think of the Mothman.
I like it.
Yeah. So stay tuned. I'm done. I'm going to sleep because I'm old and, I've journeyed a very far way up both ways in the snow.
Yeah.
Because I'm from the 90s and I'm an old lady. And I've bored you long enough. So I think I don't have anything else to add.
I'm good, man. Let's go. We're good. We're good to check out.
All right.
We'll oh, yeah. Go ahead. Outro us out.
Oh, you do? All right. Well, thank you as always. Hit me up for your tape up, your fade up. My name's Kristen. You could find me, I'm pretty sure, if you looked hard enough, me and Mothman. And I will turn it over to Swill, who will take us out.
Thank you, guys. Like always, subscribe. Like all of our pages, Instagram, Facebook. We're on Snapchat as well and TikTok. Going to be throwing up a lot of shorts as well, a lot of little clips for upcoming episodes. But thank you. It was a vibe. It was real. This is the panel. They call me Swill, and we will see you guys soon.